You know, sometimes I wonder why we still bother with these old machines. They're slower, heavier, fussier, and occasionally leak their feelings on the driveway. And yet, somehow, they still matter, because every classic car invites you into a different pace of life. A pace where you're not fighting the clock, the emails, or the 10,000 urgent notifications. You're just driving, listening, feeling. Modern cars remove a lot of that. They're brilliant, of course, fast, safe, quiet, but they also insulate us from the world. A classic car, on the other hand, refuses to let you stay on autopilot. Here, you have to be awake, present. You have to listen for that tiny rattle that wasn't there yesterday. You have to feel the road through the wheel, the way the car leans, breathes, settles. It's an experience, not a commute. And that's the strange magic of these old things. They offer something modern life keeps forgetting. Connection. Connection to the machine. Connection to the moment. Connection to a world where things had weight, smell, texture, and didn't all depend on software updates. Classic cars also bring people together. You never see strangers gathering around a 3-year-old crossover in a car park, but a 40-year-old saloon. That's an invitation. Stories start, memories surface. Everyone has a favourite relative who had one just like it. And maybe that's why they still matter, because they remind us that life isn't just about efficiency. It's not always about getting somewhere as fast as possible. Sometimes it's about feeling the journey again. These cars are rolling pieces of history, yes, but they're also reminders to slow down, to pay attention, to enjoy the simple things. So why do classic cars still matter in a modern world? Maybe because, in a world trying to rush us, they're one of the few things that gently ask us to take our time. There's something magical about driving an old car, and I don't mean the will it start today suspense, although that does add a certain flavour to life. I mean the way an old car quietly pulls you out of the frantic, high-speed, high-stress rhythm of modern living and drops you into a world where everything moves just a little differently. Modern life wants you to hurry, messages ping, deadlines loom, your phone vibrates like it's trying to escape your pocket. And somewhere in the middle of all that, you're expected to be productive, healthy, friendly, well hydrated, and apparently making passive income in your sleep. Then you get into an old car, and it reminds you that none of that matters for a little while. Old cars are wonderfully unapologetic about their pace. They don't sprint off the line. They don't have 8 driving modes. They don't pretend to be a spaceship. They just go in their own time, with a certain dignity, and occasionally with a smell you can't identify but have learned not to worry about. And that slowness, that gentle, mechanical honesty, feels incredible. You start to notice the road again, the weight of the steering, the way the engine clears its throat before settling into a rhythm. You're suddenly more connected, more present, more there than you've been all week. The car demands just enough of your attention to pull you away from the chaos, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed. It's the perfect antidote to modern overload. It's almost funny. Driving an old car forces you to slow down, and somehow you end up arriving faster at yourself. Your shoulders drop, your breathing settles. That problem you were stressing about gets replaced by something far simpler, like, was that noise there yesterday? It's basically meditation, but with carburetors and questionable electrics. Modern cars isolate you. They seal you in a soundproof pod, surround you with screens, and try to protect you from ever feeling any discomfort, physical or emotional. It's efficient, sure, but it's also oddly numbing. Old cars do the opposite. They let the world in, they let you in, they let you feel, hear, sense, and sometimes smell life happening around you. They turn driving from an errand into an experience. And when the pace drops, something else rises: enjoyment. Because you're no longer rushing to get somewhere, you're actually appreciating the process of getting there, the journey everyone keeps talking about, but rarely has time to notice. So yes, old cars might be slower, louder, needy, and slightly dramatic on cold mornings, but they also offer something modern life rarely gives us: a reason to pause, a reason to breathe, a reason to remember that not everything meaningful has to happen at full speed. Sometimes the most satisfying progress is made at 40 miles an hour in the slow lane, in a machine that insists you take the long way, and enjoy every second of it. There are plenty of complicated ways to feel better in life: meditation apps, cold plunges, inspirational quotes from people who definitely wake up earlier than you. But there's one mood booster nobody talks about, mostly because the people who know are too busy trying to find parts on eBay: the classic car. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can something built in the 70s with the structural integrity of a sandwich and the reliability of a French electrical system improve your mood? Well, let me give you 3 very solid, very scientific reasons, or at least 3 reasons that work for me. Reason 1, classic cars make you feel like the main character. Drive a modern car and you're basically piloting a dishwasher with headlights. Drive a classic and suddenly you're starring in your own film. A Citroën DS makes you feel like a time-travelling diplomat. A Triumph TR6 convinces you you're more charming than you actually are. And a Porsche 928, well, that just makes you feel like you should have a yacht, even if the closest thing you actually have is a kayak from Decathlon. There's something magical about the way old cars look, smell, and sound. They give you instant character development. Even your bad hair days look intentional when you're climbing out of a 1970s Alfa Romeo. Reason 2, classic cars force you to slow down, and slowing down feels good. It's impossible to be stressed while driving a Morris Minor. The car simply won't allow it. Try rushing and it will respond by quietly shaking its head and possibly removing a piece of itself in protest. Modern cars make everything too easy. Half the time you don't even feel like you're driving, you're supervising. But an old car demands your attention in a way that pulls you out of your head and into the moment. You have to listen, feel, and occasionally bargain with it. And in that process, everything else, deadlines, notifications, the existential dread of why did Sharon schedule another meeting, fades away. It's mechanical mindfulness, but with better smells. Reason 3, classic cars create tiny adventures. Without even trying, you don't take a classic out just to buy milk. You take it out because maybe the sun is out, maybe you finished work early, or maybe you're feeling particularly brave and want to see if the old electrics are in a cooperative mood. Even a simple 5-mile drive becomes a story. Maybe you meet someone at the petrol station who used to own the exact same MGB, but in mustard yellow. Maybe someone gives you a thumbs up, which counts as more social interaction than you usually get in a week. Or maybe, just maybe, everything works perfectly, and you spend the whole journey grinning like a child because your 40-year-old Volvo hasn't made a single alarming noise. Classic cars transform the ordinary into the slightly ridiculous, the slightly magical, and the definitely memorable. And that's good for the soul. So yes, they break, they leak, they squeak, and occasionally they demand rituals you can't explain to normal people. But they'll also lift your mood faster than any wellness practice I've ever tried. Because when you're behind the wheel of something old, whether it's a Beetle, a Jag, or some questionable French masterpiece held together by enthusiasm and rust, the world feels lighter. You feel lighter, and sometimes that's all the therapy you need. There are many wonderful things about owning a British classic car: the charm, the history, the way strangers nod approvingly at you in car parks, as if you've done something noble for your country. But before you buy one, there are a few things people tend not to mention, not because they're trying to hide them, more because British classic owners have accepted their fate and no longer see anything unusual about it. So here are 3 things nobody tells you, but probably should. Number 1, you will smell permanently of petrol. This is not a metaphor, it's a lifestyle. Somewhere, deep inside the soul of a British classic, whether it's an old MGB, a Triumph Spitfire, or a slightly too confident Jaguar XJ6, there is a faint but persistent desire to perfume its owner. You step out of the car after a lovely drive, take a deep breath, and there it is, that unmistakable blend of petrol, old leather, and maybe the ghost of a previous owner's pipe smoke. You'll think you've imagined it. Your friends will assure you that you haven't, and eventually you'll stop trying to get rid of the smell and simply accept that it's part of your personal brand. Number 2, electrical issues are a bonding exercise. Some people say the British invented romance. I say they invented character, building wiring looms. If you own anything with the words Lucas anywhere near it, you're not just a driver, you're in a long-term relationship with the Prince of Darkness himself. One day the indicators work, the next day they're on a spiritual retreat. Your headlights may or may not join you. But here's the thing, every time you fix something, or jiggle a connector, or threaten the car with a multimeter, you feel genuinely proud. Modern cars don't give you that. They give you error codes and judgment. A classic gives you opportunities for personal growth. And number 3, the real thrill isn't the driving, it's the starting. Every British classic owner knows that sacred moment. You sit down, turn the key, and hold your breath. Will it fire up instantly, like an enthusiastic Austin Mini on a sunny day? Or will it cough, think about life, and then decide that today is not the day? That moment, that glorious, unpredictable, slightly anxious moment, is the true heartbeat of British motoring. When it does start, you feel victorious. When it doesn't, you shrug because you've packed tools. You always pack tools. You could be going to the shops for milk, and you'll have a toolkit in the boot, just in case your Triumph decides it fancies a roadside picnic. But here's the secret. These 3 things point to British classics aren't perfect, and we don't want them to be. The little quirks, the smells, the gremlins, they're all part of a relationship that feels alive. Modern cars do everything flawlessly, and somehow that's less interesting. A classic gives you stories, it gives you character, it gives you a mild but constant sense of adventure. So yes, nobody tells you these 3 things, but once you've lived with a British classic, you wouldn't trade them for anything, except maybe a lift home when the starter motor gives up. There's a funny thing that happens when you spend time with an old car. You start off thinking you're the one looking after it, keeping it running, coaxing it through its quirks, forgiving it for the odd rattle or drip. But eventually you realise something else is going on. The car is teaching you something too. And one of its favourite lessons is this: slow down. Classic cars don't rush. They can't. They were born in a time before instant everything, before touch screens, notifications, and the strange modern belief that faster is always better. When you drive an old machine, you feel that difference immediately. There's a certain unhurried rhythm to the way it warms up, wakes up, and decides whether it's in the mood to cooperate today. And if you try to push it, it will remind you, gently or not, that patience is part of the deal. What's surprising is how quickly that patience becomes a pleasure, because when you're in a classic, you're not just travelling through space, you're travelling through time, you're driving something built with hands, not algorithms. You start listening more closely to the engine, noticing small changes, paying attention to the behaviour of the gearbox or the weight of the steering. Without even realising it, you drop out of the mental rush of the day and into something far more grounded. It's a bit like a moving meditation, not the sit cross-legged on a cushion type, but the sort where your attention is anchored to the sound, the feel, the moment right in front of you. You can't drive a classic car while doom scrolling or worrying about 10 different emails. It demands your presence, and that presence becomes a kind of refuge. There's also a humility to it. Classic cars have no interest in your schedule. They don't care about the meeting you're late for or the message you haven't answered. They operate on their own timeline with their own temperament. And once you accept that, life gets a bit lighter. You stop fighting the clock. You stop trying to force everything. You breathe a little more. And in that space, you rediscover something modern life quietly stole. The simple joy of driving for its own sake. A slow cruise, a long corner taken with care. The sensation of being connected to a machine that asks you to participate, not just sit there. It reminds you that moving slowly isn't the opposite of progress. Sometimes it's the only way to feel where you're actually going. So yes, old cars break and fuss and throw the occasional tantrum, but along the way they also teach us how to let go, how to pay attention, and how to enjoy the journey instead of sprinting from one destination to the next. In their own stubborn, charming way, classic cars show us a truth we tend to forget. You don't have to live fast to live well. Sometimes the best moments are found in the slow lane.